This is the Segovia Show.
All right, we are rolling. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Segovia Show. I'm your host, Segovia. Today, as I continue my conversations about health and fitness and wellness, in this case, spiritual, I invited a buddy of mine. We serve in a ministry at The Rock in Anaheim called Operation Healthy Life. We might even touch on it a little later. But I brought him on because there's something very personal to me in the way he structured the health and wellness ministry at the church. And not just that, he also has a unique story of how he came to his health journey and this and that. And I think that some certain aspects of things in our society today need to be talked about that first start with our health and wellness, including mindset. So without further ado, I want to introduce certified personal trainer, Adrian Ceja. Adrian, please introduce yourself to the audience that may not know you.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show, Andres. I was looking forward to this. I'm just looking forward just to do a deep dive and maybe even get to know you a little bit more.
Oh, yes.
More than we already do.
I know, and you will.
Because I know for sure just by sometimes in an interview context, that can actually happen. But for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Adrian Ceja. I'm a fitness and nutrition coach, and I help busy professional people, business owners get healthy and really try to help them live their best life. Ultimately, if we dig a little bit deeper, I like to help people live their best life. And so I do that through the realms of their health and their fitness and things like that, and much more recently, getting into different forms of coaching. I mean, in almost 10 years of being in this space, I'm realizing how much more, mindset plays a big part in change. And I think sometimes we just look for the best diet and the best exercise program, but we sometimes can often negate the mindset part of it. But I think that's probably even the most important. No matter how ambitious you are, no matter how go-getter you are, the thoughts that are running through your mind are very, very important in this entire process. I've been doing this for almost 10 years. I come from when I was in high school, my grandma, she had diabetes complications. And so she ended up passing away from that. And then later realizing, getting into fitness myself. And it was just, I was young, I was wanting to be fit and all that stuff and just learning about nutrition and stuff. And then I kind of had this aha moment, like, wait a minute. I was like, nutrition and our lifestyle habits really contribute to our long-term health, And then so I started to realize like that, this is something that had we had known prior or had we had this information or knowledge about like healthier eating and things like that, maybe my grandma's death could have been prevented, or even diabetes, maybe even reversed. And I think I felt a conviction in my own heart to want to help people in their life and help people see change and help people even reverse these health situations in their own life. And then so all these years later, here I am, still doing the same thing. Mission.
Yeah, and you even have your own approach to it that you coined. It's called the Seija Method, right?
The Seija Method, yeah.
Yeah.
The Seija Method was birthed out of all these years of coaching and realizing, wait a minute, there needs to be this methodical approach to how we approach change. And so the Seija Method is a three-phase systematic process to help people live a healthier lifestyle. And I could just get into phase one right now, but phase one is all about the basics and the fundamentals. Like, how do we make nutrition and exercise and this lifestyle, how do we make it doable? And how do we make it realistic for each person? And how do we keep it sustainable? Instead of just shooting for, the best things that are out there and just making health and nutrition and exercise super complex and frustrating. So I kind of just wanted to bring it down. Okay, most people fall into phase one. Most people don't have anything that they're following consistently. Most people don't understand the fundamentals. Most people don't even know the basics. They hear things and all that stuff. But what's worse is that they don't have these things set in stone where it's consistent or even mastered. And so I think oftentimes we look for all the things out there, what's new? What's this hot thing that just came out next and stuff? And so it really doesn't make this process enjoyable, and it should.
Yeah, and like those diet fads, they're just that. It's kind of like fashion. It's like, oh, what's the in thing lately? Well, that's not a lifestyle. So you can't adopt something if you're just gonna chuck it out the window and change it a little later, or say, oh, it's too expensive to even approach it. There'll always be some reason one way or another, because it's either a financial thing or it's. But the news said this fad is the one that's in. Like, no, that's why some other coaches that helped me along my journey back in the days, they would talk to me about the yo-yo diet, just because it's like here and there and here and there. It's like you don't want that. And like, I don't want that. I want a lifestyle change.
Yeah. And yo-yo dieting, I believe, comes from not having that base, not having that sustainable approach to healthier eating. And so we crash diet so hard to lose this weight, and then all of a sudden, because our mindset has not changed in this process, we go back to our old ways, and then so we gain all this weight back. And that's how this yo-yo dieting keeps happening. I get asked all the time, hey, what do you think about this diet? Or what do you think about that? Or this? All these different questions about different things. And then I find myself oftentimes helping people unlearn what they think that they know, or helping people unlearn, okay, so I'm not going to bash on that. I'm the coach. I want to help you navigate the best option for you. So what you want to do is entirely up to you. But sometimes they kind of come at it with a twisted, sometimes it's twisted context or how they're wanting to use it.
Yeah, and I think that for those of you watching or listening, when we're talking about dieting, we're actually talking about lifestyle change. It's about our relationship with food. When we think about like, oh man, that person's unhealthy, we're probably associating with their overweight and this and that. No, there's people that are underweight too, and they struggle to eat. So it's that relationship with food we use it as an umbrella term for fitness, because people got to eat better. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, someone's got to lose weight. We're talking about also people that need to gain weight. And I think some people, like, I guess they vilify, say, all carbs, and because they heard it, they don't understand it. And if we do rely on the news as much as we do, then we shouldn't have been eating broccoli, because 20 years ago, I think it was, say broccoli will kill you or cause cancer. Then they changed their minds, and they changed their minds again. Then again, they say the same thing with eggs. It's like, look, news is their job is to basically fearmonger or tell you what the in thing is. It takes more out of you to actually do some research, to speak to people, nutritionists, personal trainers, about things that people can do and eat that's adjusted to them. And while we're used to the free stuff because the news is always on, this might require a little more legwork. It's also the principles about eating. It's like drive-through isn't the best thing for you. Sometimes either like a cleaner eating that costs a little more money, or you can't spend the money, but you can buy it and cook it yourself. It takes effort out of you and out of your comfort zone, quite literally, to get to that point. But the mindset is like, no, I want to lose weight now, or I want to get healthy now. How do I get there instantaneously? And that is a mindset. I don't know if it's an American mindset or a Western mindset, but we're so used to instant gratification that we don't have the patience to wait for the journey. We want it now. It's like, no, if I'm going to do this, I want the results next week. And it's like, well, no, we're talking about a lifestyle change, hence the yo-yo diet, because I'll move on to the next fad. And that's one thing, like we got to break through that mindset.
I think it's I think it's more complex than people actually realize. They think, oh, we want to lose weight, we're going to start Monday. It's like, no. You don't even realize, how complex this is or how deep this is going to go into your life. Starting Monday, you're going to change up your entire routine, but you were unprepared for that. All they thought was just what's going to go in their mouth. But they didn't think about how they're going to get up in the morning. They didn't think about, they have to alter their morning routine and not go through the Starbucks drive-through line and get their mocha, yada, yada, whatever, and 7 pumps of, like all those kind of things start to change. And I think when we want to get healthier or have a big weight loss goal or whatever it is, these are the important things that I think need to be thought out and talked about. And I mean, of course, I may even sound biased, but coached through, because it's a process. It's a process of change. And when I started to realize years ago how much politics played a role and how they're influencing our food and what we're eating, it became even more challenging. I mean, it was almost to the point where, what do I even think, or how do I even communicate what it is I think? Because there's so much out there, especially in the media. There's so much out there where it's like, that becomes the resistance to almost what I'm trying to help people with. That becomes resistance because they hear all these other things, and then here's just Adrian, and so I think the consistency obviously is helpful, and maybe some other things too, but yeah, I think when we think about it in that deeper perspective, I think it's really, really helpful because it gives people the type of feeling, like there's much more than you're up against than just a decision that you made because you were motivated in an instant.
Yeah, and that thing you touched on, quite frankly, is the big one, politics, because now we have the body positivity movement, and now we're talking about fat-friendly allies in the medical space. I'm like, wait, what? So now it's like, folks, if you're listening on the podcast but you can't find us on YouTube, it's because I just talked about the body positivity movement because it's a false premise, folks. If your body's screaming that it needs help, you shoveling more food in your mouth as a coping mechanism and hurting yourself more is a detriment to your health. There is no such thing as like, oh, we need to change the BMI charts because it doesn't suit me. It's like how you feel. Quite frankly, that mindset is not based on reality. At least those that are pushing the body positivity movement. Oh, this is healthy. Like Cosmopolitan put up several months ago on their covers. I'm like, is this a joke? It's like, what they say? Oh, there's fat athletes. No, there's a difference between people that are overweight and trying to lose the weight and needing that kind of attire and doing their thing. Do not downplay what they're doing. They're not trying to stay like that. But now, like, say, no, these are overweight or fat athletes, whatever they say. Like, this makes no sense, and that has been something that has become more difficult for people because that very mindset is like some people say, like, oh no, it was genetics. I'm born this way. I can't stop eating because it's within my genes. So no, right. I have never ever seen that proven. They say, oh, it's a thyroid thing or whatever. There's always some kind of excuse to not try something. And all this is being manipulated, and it makes your job even more difficult to navigate because you got to be politically correct. It's like, oh, did you just fat shame me? It's like, what?
What do I touch on? What do I not touch on and stuff? Look, the body is for you. It is not against you. It does a great job in communicating to you. If you feel inflammation, that's a way of your body communicating back to you. Hey, let's tend to this inflammation, or let's attend to this area on your body, so that way you can respond. That's exactly what inflammation does. It gives us some form of communication. Oh, headache. Well, why do we have chronic headaches? Well, because of this and this. So it gives you that form of, hey, let's address this. And this, look, for years, it's been studied, it's been researched, and it's been proven. Obesity and people who are severely overweight, it is associated with diabetes complications. It's associated with higher chance of having heart disease. It's associated with higher chance of you having high cholesterol, high blood pressure, things like that. Even linked to things like depression. So that's just what it is. And let's just say maybe people like agree or disagree, but let's just say that that's been something that's been said for years. Okay, so then we have the other side now, where we have because it's kind of complex in the sense that there's two sides, but on both.
Hold on, I think I'm losing you just now. The audio cut off. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I think I just lost you in my AirPods, but that's okay. Can you hear me?
There we go. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I think your AirPods might have died out.
Oh, probably. Oh man. So because it's very complex, we have the side where no, I don't want to body shame people. Of course not, because this is. I want to be ethical and I want to be respectful and such, But am I going to promote, obesity? No. So
exactly, yeah.
So that's the body. That's where it can kind of get like kind of interesting and stuff. It's like I respect you as a person. Like, yeah, I'm not going to look down on you. I'm not going to have some kind of like judgment towards you, whatever it is. But at the But at the same time, though, too, like as far as my work is concerned, we know that we feel better when our skeletal system and our low back isn't carrying this excess body weight.
Yeah, there's always a complaint about, and I don't want to commingle things, but it kind of touches upon it. There's a lot of complaints about the medical industry, how they're invested in making money off us. Well, if you really want to hit them where it hurts, do something for yourself that doesn't require you to go see them. You know, it's
Right.
like you touched on your grandma, and the epiphany was a preventable disease.
Mm-hmm.
That's entirely different. Say someone losing a limb, you know, that's a lot more difficult to address. But the idea that some things are preventable, just that there's no like desire to do something about it, instead of finding excuses to be in that lifestyle, if you will. There are no books that say 10 steps on how to get fat. I haven't seen someone that needed to be a professional on how to gain weight. Anybody can do it. It's the effort that it takes, the mindset. And we're going to be hitting this one really hard because that's where it all starts. Like, to get up in the morning, to self-motivate in a way, to get going, and then do those things that then become second nature, where it's like, I like being this way. You at some point it'll be like walking or breathing. You don't think about it anymore. You just do. Your eyes will naturally know. It's like, I want that. That's good for me. There's other stuff I can go without it. You know, it right now it's more like, I want that. It's about like, okay, that's enough. That's enough. Like, to get your mind to that point where you put yourself in check is awesome. But we do allow ourselves to be manipulated or influenced in some way or another through societal pressure or peer pressure to continue being in this. So I've always said that the number one enemy to your success is the man in the mirror, because that's the first person you see all the time, and it's either they will motivate you or not. And I know that's always been my battle. It's like,
yeah, like, and look, with all respect to the medical community, because we need them. However, there's no big business for big pharma when we're healthy. And so it brings them no benefit to see you fully recovered and all this other stuff, right? So, I mean, it would make sense for them. And that's why Westernized medicine treats symptoms and not the actual root of the situation. The actual root is going to be your lifestyle. The actual root is going to be the choices that you make every single day around food, or whether you choose to live a more active lifestyle. Literally, the function of the muscular system is movement. Why are we not moving? And if we're not moving, then we will feel the effects of that.
Yeah, and I think the movie WALL-E really touched upon it, how the future society is all just being moved around these hovercrafts, and the commercialization of everything's like, oh, look, I like that thing now. Let's just change the color. It's like, really, that's what it comes down to. To appreciate the organic things. I know there's an environmental message in that movie, but that's not the point. The point is that like, turn off the screens and see what's right before you, or what you had and lost and you wish you could get back. It requires work. So I think that is a beautiful message from the movie altogether. But it really highlights a situation in that movie came out in 2008. Who would have known that 12 years later we would literally be incubated in a place, and we'd be ordering out to arrive to our house to shovel in our face, and we would be told not to exercise. Or a lot of people that do not have or are not homeowners, or do not rent a place that has a yard, to be confined to an apartment space or a condo, and there was just no way to be active per se. And they didn't see that, oh, I can't do anything in my room. Yes, you can, but they didn't have the motivation. But here they are shoveling, all this unhealthy food. And then what came out of that was a population that is more ripe for the taking to be hurt by the current viral outbreak. So it's like, we went backwards. Why? What did it hurt to say, folks, get some vitamin D, get some exercise, eat better. Strong immune system is the best form of defense. That's the first guard. The hospital is the last thing. In fact, this is what we're talking about just right here by me mentioning it. It looks like as we're recording today, the state of California is making information such as this, even from professionals, medical professionals, illegal. You cannot speak against the state-sanctioned ways to combat the CUF. I'm going to use that as a term before YouTube censors me on that. But because we're talking about that, if it goes against the state-approved message, people like you and the medical professionals cannot speak against that because it's considered misinformation. For someone that's in that medical field, like we at school, we all learned the food pyramid. I didn't know that was the way the government set it up. And then I learned later that food pyramid should be upside down, not the way it is right now. But you couldn't go against it. It was state sanctioned, if you will. That's all we're up against, quite literally. Where some people that are tuning in will probably be like, well, I'm going to take my advice from the news, even though there really isn't a thing to say they're the authority, other than the fact that they're given all this screen time, or airtime. Meanwhile, you who worked to become certified and are a professional trainer and nutritionist, and you do this for a living, you can't be taken serious. Like, they work and live. That's entirely different than someone reading from a teleprompter on the evening news. But it is crazy how this is what you're up against.
And I will tell you, I have tons of testimonials and transformation, the results, and et cetera, for the people that I work with. And I did not follow this pyramid. Go figure. I did not follow this pyramid. But I do want to mention this, though, if it's okay, because I'm also the encourager. If there is somebody listening who feels like we're bashing on their efforts, I'm not trying to do that. I think that there's room for improvement, and when I'm referring to trying to get healthier and et cetera, it's oftentimes people will self-sabotage if they don't hit a specific goal or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it can feel like this sense of nothing's working for me, giving up. And then all of a sudden we start to just kind of live with how we feel, and we kind of get used to it because we're just so tired and frustrated. And I understand it from the context of having coached these people. It can be really frustrating. So what I'm saying is that you don't have to live that way. You can still improve. Do not give up. There's still hope, and you can still move forward.
No, absolutely. And I'm actually really glad you brought that up now, because it is in my notes to address later. But since you touched on it, my audience knows, because I shared this repeatedly. I talked about my health journey and things. I've always said, and I always thought, as soon as I made that change in my life, that the weight loss was going to be the easiest part. In a nutshell, I put off 80 pounds in 3.5 months. After that, I signed up with a personal trainer because of my limitations, my injuries and all that, to work around it. Because I knew it's like, hey, how can I still do what I need to do? Because I need to move and do it right without hurting myself. Because I'm living with back pain for almost 2 decades at the time, and on the highway to back surgery. It's my doctor. Yeah, and my doctor was telling me that, man, your back is being held by duct tape. You don't have just a pinched sciatica. You have another pinched nerve that's causing you to feel that your thigh is on fire in the middle of the night. Like, and there's nothing there, but you got to walk it off because there's no blood circulating and this and that's. Like, and I couldn't stay standing for too long. I couldn't stay lying down for too long. I couldn't play with my kids. And like, all right, I got to put off the weight. So I had to do something, and I did. And I always told myself, hey, the hardest part is going to be the rest of it. It's being in fitness, because it's a constant thing. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be some bad eating. There's going to be food poisoning and things like that will always set me back. And in the past 18 months, I could say I lost count of how many times I got injured on a bulking phase, because I always knew that, like, it's going to be really risky. And I have little ones, and I usually work out from my home gym. And even though I sometimes try to make sure the doors are secure for not to come in, they sometimes they sneak in, and they're trying to bench with loose dumbbells, and I see a little head pop up, like, hey, no. So I let the weight fall on me to hurt me instead of hurting them. And I am not where I want to be, but I know this is my life. I'm just gonna keep going. I don't let that hold me back. I haven't had a good enough workout in at least a week. And to me, that's awful, considering that's I work on Monday through Friday, and do stretches and static workouts on Saturdays and Sunday. No, I don't do it. That's it. That's my rest day. So to not to be taken off that entire rhythm has been awful, and it can get easy to get complacent. So it's like, yeah, I didn't do it, so I'll just wait. So no, it's to get back on that high horse and keep going. That's why I tell people that have sought me for advice, and I point them, say, hey, look, these are people that I recommend. I pointed them in your direction. I pointed to my friend Shayna. She's the one that trained me at the beginning, and believe me, as a dude, to be trained by a fit woman was very intimidating. So like, no, I don't want to. And next thing I know, we're friends to this day, and it's really awesome. So what I tell people when they say, oh, New Year's resolutions, like this is how it always breaks down. It's like, okay, so I'm going to enjoy life, as they say, from Thanksgiving to New Year's, and then New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, I'm going to be, doing my New Year's resolution to get healthy. And they fall off that horse within a week, but they don't never jump back on it. And then 11 or 10 months go by, then they say, I'm going to enjoy Thanksgiving, I'm going to all the way to New Year's, and then and starting New Year's Day, I'm going to be getting into. So hold on. So you're gaining, you don't lose, and then you keep gaining. When is the part where you're saying that you're actually doing something? So it's like, it's not about New Year's. Let your New Year's resolution be whenever it falls. I don't care if it's July 4th, do something, or else the excuses are going to be, I'll wait to January 1st. It's too far away. You have to start with the mindset switched. Start the day.
I always tell people there's never a convenient time to get healthy, because if you are not married and then you want to do it later, well, when you get married, it's going to be harder. If you don't have, if you are and you guys want to have kids and you don't do it right now, and you have kids, it's going to be harder. So there's never really this like time. It is much better to mold it into your life somehow.
Yeah. And you actually you said entrepreneurs, and you're actually, I think one of them still training with you, a mutual friend, Eli, that's with Renderos. So like I saw his transformation. I was like, hey man, looking sharp. Like, yeah, I'm training with Adrian, man. I was like, oh, that's awesome. And for someone from a busy lifestyle too. It's like there's no excuse, and he was always happy, but he just shines more now.
Yeah,
it's like he feels happier with himself now, not just spreading the joy of Christ to others, but it's like within himself he feels. You can tell,
Yeah, and here's what I think it is. I think the reason why I think that way works best is because I always say winning compounds. If you can help people win in the small, they're more likely to win in the big. So that's why I like the more sustainable approach. Here's why: because if you can follow something that's realistic to your lifestyle, you start to have small wins, and wins feel good. You get that dopamine hit, you feel good, and you want to move on to the next thing, and then so these wins start to kind of compound, and then you realize, next thing you know, it's been a couple weeks, it's been some months, and you realize, wow, I may not be where I once was. I may not be where I want to be yet, but I am not where I once was. So there's this realization of some form of improvement, some form of progress, and that feels good. That's motivating. And self-sabotage happens when we want to shoot high and then we self-inflict because we didn't hit our goal, or that we'd much rather sabotage ourselves and actually try to hit that goal before we even make an attempt sometimes, or try to put ourselves in a position or in a situation where we may not even want to try or what have you. So it can get really interesting, though it's the least sexy thing to do, to start small and to find an approach in that way. But I think sometimes it could be the most beneficial.
Well, last I checked, when I played Super Mario Brothers, I didn't start at the final castle to fight Bowser. Right. I had to start at World 1-1. So it's like that, It's
any video game.
Any video game, you got it along the way. It's the same concept. And to me, like, yes, goals, attainable goals, and then move the bar beyond that. The whole thing about fitness, though, I say it's a journey. It's a journey, as in that it doesn't end. She's like, life is a journey. This is an ongoing thing, and I haven't let the cat out of the bag. And you know, but I haven't let the cat out of the bag about some things that are going on in my personal life right now, and I'll tell you some of this off the air. But it's a big change, and one of the big changes that I'm looking forward to is health wise, mindset wise, is to be not that beholden to what I do for work, because what I do for work as a small business owner, it's literally taking care of an infant child that never grows up. That's just work, and having to run 3 operations, and then this is a 4th operation because I'm self-producing with some part-time staff that helps me every now and then for my show. It's a 4th job, but I do it because it's fun, and it's also keeps me sane too, you know. But with all that, it's like 4 jobs, not to mention that I have growing children. I have a wife that to be with, and somehow find time for myself. It's been, and time management is huge. So it, to me, it's never letting myself be defeated by it, where it's like, you know, I didn't put in the work today. But yeah, but how did you eat? 80% of a good work, of a healthy lifestyle is nutrition. It doesn't necessarily have to be the training per se, because things will happen. And it's like, well, if I can't do the workouts, I make sure my eating is in check. And that's like, there's always something that can be done to work around on those things. So and I guess I wanted to say this for later, but I think we're kind of segueing to that, because this whole being defeated or self-sabotage, and we also understand that, hey, life happens. Operation Healthy Lives, I'll bring it into the fold right now, because I talked about it on my show before, because I announced that I was going to get involved.
You did? Oh, cool.
Yes, I have. That's how some people signed up, and that's why I have people from out of state that are interested in seeing the online version come on, because they want to try it out.
Because talk about it again. You know?
Yes, and that's why it's a good time to bring it up, because when I shared, I did an episode where I just dived straight in a solo show where I just talked about my health journey. So I'm not going to recap all of it. I'm just going to touch on the main points. The main points being that, yes, when I devoted myself to change my lifestyle in my relationship with eating, it wasn't so much for that. It was a fast to put before God, where I say, all right, God, if I can control my body needs to live, then I definitely can say no to the things that don't help my life. Right. Addictions, bad habits, attitudes, all that stuff. I don't have to let that control me, because it was, by all accounts, a spiritual journey. And as I went through the weight loss process and the fitness, it was an incredible experience to draw closer to God in a way I haven't done in a long time. But also while doing so, I started feeling also negative currents and it's demonic elements that were also reaching for my attention in a way I've never felt them before. As someone that's spiritually inclined, and I've shared stuff on the spiritual aspect of things, well, because I don't have my Christianity, I'm very bold about it. But when I've spoken about it, some people are like, whoa, that's mind-blowing. So when I say that stuff that I've talked about before, compared to what I experienced in health and fitness, that's when I knew, like, thank you, God, for me incorporating spiritual, because now I understand why people get swept up by Hinduism, Buddhism, the whole, not the yoga stretching, but the whole aspect of the meditation of yoga, or they go to sound baths and things like that, because it is spiritual. So when I heard of Operation Healthy Lives coming into the fold, I'm like, hey, that's what I did. And you did it as a program with the backing of the church. I'm like, awesome. This is the way it should be. So when I've had a chance to coach, and in this last session, I wasn't coaching, but in the sessions that I got to coach, I got to share that very thing with people. And they told me, yes, this is very much spiritual. I had some students on the verge of graduating, and then they break a bone. And something that happened, at their home, like, life happens. And the encouragement for me to her was like, as soon as you're able to, even that, don't let this hold you back. You may not have graduated the class, but that doesn't mean you gotta let this thing hold you back. And the last time I saw her, she looked better than when I saw her at OHL. So that's like, thank you. No, she's still pushing. And that's how it should be. Life's gonna throw those curveballs at us. That's why I'm glad you brought it up first. We said we're not trying to bash anybody that's trying to make a positive change in their health and fitness, but also understand that for me, when we talk about mindset, I'm also incorporating just as importantly the spiritual aspect of things, because whether we like it or not, conscious or subconscious, it's a part of it. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing the effects of that spiritualness play out in our culture today, about what the negative effects of people being stuck for months on end, getting really unhealthy with them. Some people can't even walk out of their own doors, the very doors that were locked in, they couldn't walk out of them anymore. It's like, holy smokes. And then the mental struggles that came with all that thereafter, that people don't really touch upon and should be. And then we're seeing things play out in our society today that bring us like, where did all this come from? There's a common denominator for a lot of this. It's mental and spiritual. Mm-hmm. That's why I started tying it all in. It's when people want to be better, healthy, and they want to get into fitness, they will encounter the spiritual. That's why it's important. What spirit will they encounter? Because they can very well be swept away by wicked things in the attempts to be better. And that's why I always tell, like, hey, anybody that can, Operations Healthy Lives. And for people that haven't been able to do it because they don't live in Orange County, it's still something that's, hey, the online, it's been in development for some time. It is coming because you see that need, you're filling that need. And it's awesome. Anything you can share regarding OHL, not just online thing, but what inspired you to bring that?
Yeah, first, oftentimes I say that, we can only go as far as our body would allow. So if we honor and respect, the only thing we have to live in, then I think going back to how I said about the body's for us, not against us, but you're, if you're a go-getter and if you're ambitious and you have goals that you want to hit and all that stuff, sorry, I just saw this message that I was looking forward to. Sorry, total sidetrack. But if we can, it's kind of funny. But maybe I can get into it later. Just kidding. But if we can, if we're go-getters and ambitious and stuff, let's just say, for example, we're starting to move forward with these things and we're excited and stuff, but it's hard to move forward with life excitedly if you have chronic headaches all the time, or if you have constant, stomach aches all the time, or constant low back issues all the time. It keeps you down. Yeah. And quite frankly, it honestly demotivates you, and it gets a little bit depressing. Like when I had my wrist injury some years ago, it affected every part of my day and I was annoyed. And I probably shouldn't have been working out as hard as I was, but I was also being hard-headed, and so I still was. And I probably delayed the recovery aspect of all that stuff. Yeah. But, touching on the OHL part though, everybody has a source. Everybody has a source. And as far as my source, as a believer and as a Christian, my source was not, food. That was not the thing that that filled me up every day. Unfortunately, that's a lot of people's source, because they don't have this spiritual connection. They're not relinquishing, if you will, their life to as a Christian to God, and saying God, you be in control, take my life, and the greatest thing that can fulfill us as Christians is Jesus himself. He's the bread of life. And if we can be filled with the Spirit, the Bible says that out of us will flow rivers of living water. And if you think of living water, it's fresh, it's clean, it's pure. Yeah. And that, the Bible says that will flow out of us. And so if that becomes your source, we're not gonna move on impulsive thoughts or impulsive coping mechanisms like we get from food or other types of things. And so it's a whole like full like circle of just how to improve your life as a whole. And I think a lot of times pride has a lot of part to do with that. Sometimes, I don't know, ego, fear of like even submitting to the Lord or whatever it is for people. So I can see how complex it can be. But if it were not complex, then faith would be irrelevant. And so if faith is something faith is something that we don't necessarily see. But if we can move on it, there can be fruit out of that. There can be something positive that we can see out of that.
Yeah, and I also would add to that. I think another fear is failure. If anything, people are disappointing people, and ultimately, if they know that God exists and is real in their life, the last thing they want is to disappoint Him. So sometimes they think, you know what, I'm not even going to try because I'm not gonna do it. Like, well,
I'm not good enough. Look at my life.
Yeah, and just like we talked about how like even in the health and fitness journey, you know, there'll be times where you screw up or eat wrong or miss a workout or two or a month. That's like, hey, the point is to get back on the high horse and keep going. Well, same thing with spiritual. Like spiritual can definitely drag us down. Like if we're not all there, you can be doing everything right, but you're not right in the spirit. It'll definitely anchor you from going anywhere far. And I make no bones about it. I tell people on my show when the topic is brought up, hey, yeah, I'm Christian and I'm bold about it. I never said I'm perfect. I'm a Christian because I'm not perfect. I need Christ in my life. And I have to repent more often than I want to for my shortcomings. And I have to apologize to my wife as well. She knows all my deepest, darkest secrets. And she knows my limitations, my struggles. Like I'm transparent with those that I love the most, that have the greatest impact in my life, that being my wife and God. And that doesn't make things easier for me. Just that every now and then, you know, either life happens or, you know, the tempter comes along and just gets you off your game. Then it's like you can stay wallowed in shame. It's like if I even share an example, some people are like, oh, come on, Andres, that's not that big of a deal. It's a big of a deal if you know that it hurts the person that you love. It's like, oh, God, I don't need these things in my life. And that's why it's like I could easily stay in the rut, but that's not what God wants me to be. He wants me to get up and keep going. I'm saved by grace. He knew I was going to screw up. So He's not demanding perfection from us. He just doesn't want us to stay there and continue behaving or being in that way. And people misconstrue that, and naturally so. This goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, where the misinformation is coming from. It even comes from within the church. You're not good enough. You'll never make God happy. That's why you got to live with condemnation on your life and self-flagellation because you're never good enough. So remember to pay your penitence every day. It's like, then why am I here? I thought being a Christian was the joy of Christ, and I'm not receiving that. Not speaking from experience, okay? Because that's the church that I came from. So I had negativity thrown at me from all sorts. And it's like, well, even in the church, wasn't getting any motivation. I go to university, I'm getting pummeled by political opponents. I'm like, I thought we're here to learn English, and it's not happening. I have a loving family growing up, but I felt that they were forced to love me because I was their child. I didn't understand what it meant to have a parental love toward me from responsible parents, but I rejected the love. I know that God existed somewhere and he cared about me, but I didn't receive it or accept it. That's why I struggle with suicide. I attempted it 5 times, not just suicidal tendencies, attempted 5 times, failed all the time. That's why I'm still here. But the last one was the most impactful one where I attempted and God told me to drop the knife. I called you for something greater. I'm like, oh, wow. And I got into detail before about that transformation. I recently shared that with some family over at a family reunion that we had recently. And I'm talking to people that are not of the faith, but I'm sharing them with my last, it just came out of nowhere. And I was talking about my struggles and this and that. And when I told them about my last suicide attempt, I'm like, you're looking at the place where it happened. Like, wait, where? And the voice came from right here. And I was 17 when it happened. My last time. I still had suicidal tendencies and depression, but that voice was just so strong and powerful, because the voice said, drop the knife. If I didn't have a purpose for you, I would have left you in that pool. And the reference he was making to, that voice was making to, was 5 years prior, where I was drowning in a pool. I was 12 years old. I wasn't always this tall. Motel 6, St. George, Utah. Bunch of friends and family were all in the same pool, but everybody thought I was faking when I was drowning. So when an angel pulled me out of that pool, and I'm the only one that saw the angel, and I wasn't interrogating people because I was yelling at them, how come none of you can help me? But that guy did. Who? The one that pulled me out of the pool. He was like, there was no one that pulled you out of the pool. And it was broad daylight. So I'm like,
wow.
It took 6 months for me to realize what had transpired, but even that wasn't enough to shake me into changing my life. But eventually did. And that moment of me trying to kill myself, and that voice saying I would have left you there, then it's like immediately connected. I'm like, you did it. You got me out of there. So then, yeah, I didn't attempt suicide anymore. I had suicidal tendencies, but not attempts. But I could tell you that thereafter, I had near-death experiences, a ton of them. And it's like, wow, Lord, you protected me from killing myself, and the devil's really trying to kill me. And you saved me from all these other things thereafter.
Yeah.
When I say I'm not afraid of death, even when I have kids and stuff, look, I can't control the vehicle is going to lose their brakes and smash into me and probably injure me beyond repair or take my life. I have no control over that. All I can control is that they're looked after when I'm not around. And that's that. I've had so many run-ins with death, even coming from the hard streets of Compton and Watts. That's where I grew up. That's the border. Everybody's like, wait, no, you didn't. It's like, I'll show you my house and the cinder block wall that my father put up in front of the property to stop all the bullets from flying into the unit. It's like, that's where I come from. And I don't want to say I'm used to that kind of lifestyle. I'm just saying I've been surrounded by danger my entire life, whether it's an external source or from within. And that's why it's spiritual. That's why it's like, Lord, the spiritual is huge, and it's affecting our society in a way that it hasn't in so long, because America's turned away from God. And it pains to see the recent tragedies that have transpired, whether it's due to racism, prejudice, or just spitefulness to others, or just people that are breaking down, seeking attention and glory, just want their 15 minutes of fame, and their idea of getting that fame is to hurt the most vulnerable amongst us. It's evil, it's demonic, it's permeating our society, and we kicked God out of the schools. And we tell people that their dysphoria, their mental illness. No, let's cultivate that, because they're trying to live something they're not. They're trying to live this imaginary thing, and then we wonder why there's so much mental illness. Why do we have the highest rates of suicide in this country? It is a spiritual thing. It's what we're feeding ourselves physically and spiritually, which is why, yes, mindset. And when we're saying it, we're also meaning spiritual. It's a spiritual mindset in all this, which is why we're Christian. We turn to God to write all these things. We'll have the political opponents say, hold your thoughts and prayers. They mean nothing because you guys support guns, for example. Like, it's like a complete misnomer. It's like, well, you support the murdering babies in the womb, mutilating their genitals, feeding them puberty blockers. Tell me how that's not child abuse, and not to mention child murder. It's like, I've been consistent with my morality, and people need to realize that screw the politics. Stop treating the symptom like the medical community does, and get to the root of it. It's demonic, it's spiritual, and we need to address it. And I think that's a pretty solid note to wrap things up. I'm going to give you the last word. If there's anything that we might have not touched on, or that you'd like to chime in on before you can tell my audience where they can follow you, or if interested to sign up with you.
Well, I was just going to say that, to touch on what you were talking about. I mean, there's a spiritual realm to all of this, and I think because of ignorance, we don't want to address it because we don't know how, and not in ignorance in a negative sense, but we just don't know how. Or non-believers anyway. And so that's why we value the prayer part, because our battle is not in flesh and blood. Our battle is in the spiritual realm. It's in the heavenly places. And so when we can use the power of the word, the power of God, the power of the Holy Spirit, things will come down and things can break loose. I felt that in my own life. And so when we have strong, experienced, mature Christians, I think that's why our conviction is so strong. And we continue to push that because we've seen it in our own life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And thank you for those last words there. For people that are interested in learning more about the Seija Method, and if they're around, whether they're business pro or anything of the sort, they can train with you. I told my friend Shayna, because she said she trains men and women. Like, I know because I train with you. I told her, it's like, I'm just gonna be straight up with you. No dude is gonna want to voluntarily train with you. It's like dudes are intimidated. Exactly. So she's like, no, that's not true. And now, since I had her on my show, she's molded her entire workouts for women. So it's like now it's exclusive to women. It's like, yeah, play to your strengths, literally. But we're people that can learn more about your methodology and even train with you. Because hey, no, we didn't even touch on that. You're opening your own gym soon, right?
I am, yeah.
It's exciting. It's for those of you in North Orange County, maybe even Inland Empire. Sometimes it takes a little bit of an effort, but you're going to be located, I think, around Anaheim Hills, something like that.
Yeah, it's so Anaheim, bordering Anaheim Hills. The gym is going to be called Tribe. It opened this summer. We're hoping late July, latest probably early August. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to mention though too, even if you are not local, there will be an online component to this gym because we're going in the direction of a hybrid model gym where there's a physical location, but then also an online location to it as well.
Awesome.
So, which would give you both access to the online stuff and also the in-gym access as well.
And how do people that want to stay up to date stay up to date? Where can they follow you?
For now, follow me anywhere, official Adrian Ceja.
All right, cool. Like Instagram, Facebook, and things like that, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think you did you have your website, or I think you did, right?
Seija.com there too.
Cool. And for those of you listening on the podcast, you know the drill. Every single link that's mentioned here and more will be available in the show notes accompanying this episode at www.dangerouscover.com. Adrian, thank you so very much for coming on the program today to share your knowledge and to have these discussions about health, fitness, mindset, and spiritual wellness. We'd love to have you on this topic again when it comes around.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.